Meet Felipe, 43 years old, a man who by most conventional health metrics appears to be doing reasonably well. He maintains a healthy body, goes to the gym regularly, watches what he eats, doesn't smoke, drinks alcohol only moderately, and when he gets his annual physical checkup and blood work, the results come back mostly in the normal range. His testosterone isn't exceptionally high, but it's not clinically low either. His cholesterol is acceptable. His blood pressure is reasonable. His blood sugar is fine. There's no obvious glaring medical problem that jumps out from his lab results. By the standard measures that doctors typically look at, Felipe is a relatively healthy 43-year-old man. And yet, despite this apparent physical health, despite having a body that should theoretically be capable of normal sexual function, Felipe's sexual desire has completely disappeared. It's not diminished or reduced or occasionally present. It's genuinely gone. He can go days, even weeks, without a single sexual thought or feeling of desire. When opportunities for intimacy with his partner arise, he feels nothing, no pull, no interest, no motivation, just indifference, or sometimes even a vague sense of obligation or dread about having to perform when he doesn't feel anything. For a long time, Felipe didn't understand why this was happening to him. He examined all the usual suspects. He wondered if maybe his testosterone was lower than the lab ranges suggested, if maybe he needed hormone replacement. He considered whether he was no longer attracted to his partner after years together. He questioned whether he was depressed, though he didn't feel particularly sad, just flat and disconnected. He worried that maybe he was broken somehow, that his sexual system had just stopped working for no identifiable reason. None of these explanations felt quite right, but he didn't have a better framework for understanding what was happening to him, until he finally had a realization, a moment of clarity that changed his entire perspective on the problem. He realized that his mind never, ever rests. Not during the day, not in the evening, not even when he's supposedly relaxing or trying to sleep. His mind is perpetually occupied, churning constantly with an endless stream of concerns, worries, mental tasks, anxieties, and pressures that give him absolutely no peace. Financial worries are always present in the background of his consciousness. He thinks about bills, about retirement savings that feel inadequate, about wanting to provide better for his family, about economic uncertainty, about money constantly. Work pressure weighs on him heavily every single day. He has deadlines, performance expectations, difficult colleagues, challenging projects, job insecurity, and a sense that he can never quite do enough or be good enough, no matter how hard he tries. Social expectations create another layer of pressure. He's supposed to be successful, to be a good provider, to be a strong man, to have everything together, to never show weakness or struggle. The fear of failure haunts him constantly. What if he loses his job? What if his business doesn't work out? What if he can't pay the mortgage? What if he disappoints his family? What if people discover he's not as capable or together as he appears? These thoughts and dozens of others like them occupy his mental space every waking moment and often invade his sleep as well. His mind is like a browser with 50 tabs open simultaneously, each one demanding attention, each one adding to the overall cognitive load, each one preventing him from ever truly being present and relaxed. And this is when Felipe has his crucial breakthrough realization. The hero of this story discovers something profound that changes everything about how he understands his missing libido. His sexual desire isn't broken, it isn't damaged, it isn't gone forever. It's suffocated. It's buried under an avalanche of mental noise, stress, anxiety, and cognitive overwhelm. His libido is still there, the capacity for desire is still intact, but it can't surface, it can't be felt, it can't express itself because his nervous system is locked in a chronic state of threat and hypervigilance that is fundamentally incompatible with sexual desire and arousal. You cannot feel relaxed desire when your mind is perpetually in crisis mode. You cannot feel the pull of sexual interest when your mental resources are completely consumed by anxiety and problem solving. Sexual desire requires mental space, emotional availability, a sense of safety, feeling of relaxation, and presence in your body and the moment. When none of those conditions exist, because your mind never stops churning with worries and pressures, desire simply cannot emerge no matter how healthy your hormones are or how attractive your partner is. Hello, and welcome to another video here on the channel. If you're new here, I create evidence-based, practical content about men's health, sexual function, mental health, relationships, and living optimally. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos that could significantly improve your quality of life. And if what we discussed today resonates with you, if it helps you understand the connection between your mental state and your missing libido, if it gives you practical strategies to quiet your mind and rediscover desire, please leave a like to help other men who are suffering from mental overload and lost libido find this information. Today, we're going to explore one of the most common yet least understood causes of low male libido in the modern world, which is mental and psychological overwhelm. In this video, you're going to understand exactly how mental overload, chronic anxiety, and excessive stimulation systematically shut down male sexual desire through specific mechanisms involving your nervous system, neurotransmitters, and stress response. I'm going to explain the critical role that your autonomic nervous system plays in sexual function, why sexual arousal is literally impossible when you're stuck in sympathetic fight or flight activation. I'm going to discuss how dopamine dysregulation from constant stimulation and stress impairs your motivation and desire for everything, including sex. I'm going to explain how performance anxiety specifically creates a vicious cycle that perpetuates the problem. And I'm going to address how emotional disconnection from yourself and your partner blocks libido, even when physical factors are optimal. Most importantly, you're going to learn specific practical strategies to reduce mental noise, recover presence and groundedness in your body and the moment, reactivate natural desire, and rebuild intimate emotional connection with your partner. Because here's the fundamental truth that most men miss. Libido is not just about hormones. It's not just a biological drive that either exists or doesn't. Libido emerges from the intersection of mind, body, and context, all working together harmoniously. When your mind is overwhelmed, your context is stressful, and you're disconnected from your body, libido cannot exist regardless of your hormone levels. Let's start by understanding what's happening in Felipe's nervous system, because this is the key to understanding why his desire has vanished despite normal physical health. Your autonomic nervous system has two main branches. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for your stress response. your fight-or-flight activation. When this system is engaged, your body is prepared for action, for dealing with threats, for survival. Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure rises, your muscles tense, your mind becomes hypervigilant and scanning for danger. Your digestion shuts down because it's not essential in an emergency, and crucially, your sexual function shuts down because reproduction is absolutely not a priority. When you're under threat, the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for rest, digestion, recovery, and importantly, sexual arousal and function. This is your rest and digest system. When this system is dominant, your body feels safe, relaxed, open. Your heart rate slows, your breathing deepens, your muscles release tension, your mind can wander and be creative and feel pleasure, and sexual arousal becomes possible because your nervous system has assessed that conditions are safe enough to engage in reproductive behavior. Here's the critical insight. You cannot be simultaneously in sympathetic stress activation and parasympathetic sexual arousal. They're mutually exclusive states. Sexual arousal requires parasympathetic dominance, which requires feeling safe, relaxed, and present. But Felipe's mind never rests, his stress never fully turns off, and therefore his sympathetic nervous system is chronically activated. He's perpetually in a low-grade state of threat and emergency, never fully entering the parasympathetic rest and relaxed state necessary for sexual desire and function. His body is essentially receiving constant signals that now is not the time for sexuality. Because we're dealing with threats and crises, the fact that these threats are largely psychological and not physical doesn't matter to his nervous system. Anxiety about finances activates the same stress response as anxiety about a predator. His nervous system cannot distinguish between different types of threats. It just knows threat has been detected and therefore maintains sympathetic activation and suppresses parasympathetic functions, including sexuality. This is why men like Felipe can have perfectly normal testosterone levels, be physically healthy, be attracted to their partners, and still experience complete loss of libido. The hormones and the body are ready, but the nervous system is locked in the wrong state to allow desire to emerge. It's like trying to start a car that's in the wrong gear. All the components are functional, but the conditions aren't right for the system to engage. Now let's talk about dopamine and how it's being dysregulated in Felipe's brain, contributing to his lost desire. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of motivation, reward anticipation, and desire. It's what makes you want things, what drives you to pursue rewards, what creates that feeling of excitement and anticipation when you think about something pleasurable. Healthy libido requires healthy dopamine function. When you see or think about something sexually appealing, dopamine should surge, creating motivation and desire to pursue that sexual opportunity. But Felipe's dopamine system has been chronically overstimulated and dysregulated by modern life. He's constantly exposed to stimulation from work emails, news notifications, social media, financial alerts, text messages, and hundreds of other sources of stimulation and micro-stresses throughout every day. Each notification, each new piece of information, each small stressor creates a tiny dopamine response. Over time, with chronic overstimulation, the dopamine system becomes desensitized. The receptors downregulate, meaning you need more stimulation to feel the same response. And the baseline production of dopamine may decline because the system is exhausted from constant activation. The result is a state that's sometimes called dopamine dysregulation or reward deficiency, where nothing feels particularly motivating or exciting or worth pursuing, including sex. Felipe experiences this as a general flatness, a lack of enthusiasm for things that used to bring him pleasure, and specifically a complete absence of sexual desire. His dopamine system is so depleted and desensitized from chronic overstimulation and stress that it can no longer generate the motivational drive necessary for libido. This is not a permanent state. The dopamine system can recover and recalibrate, but it requires reducing the chronic overstimulation and giving the system time to reset. Let's also address performance anxiety specifically, because it creates its own vicious cycle that perpetuates low libido even after other factors begin improving. Here's how the cycle works. Felipe experiences low desire due to stress and nervous system dysregulation. He notices this absence of desire and worries about it. What's wrong with me? Why don't I want sex? Is my relationship failing? Am I losing my masculinity? This worry creates anxiety specifically about sexual performance. The next time an opportunity for sex arises, Felipe isn't thinking about pleasure or connection. He's thinking about whether he'll be able to perform, whether he'll feel desire, whether his partner will notice his lack of enthusiasm. This anxiety activates his sympathetic nervous system further, which suppresses sexual arousal, which confirms his fears and creates more anxiety for the next encounter. Round and round it goes. The anxiety about not feeling desire actually prevents desire from arising, which creates more anxiety. This is why performance anxiety is so insidious and self-perpetuating. The only way to break this cycle is to reduce the pressure and anxiety around sexual performance, which requires reframing how you think about sex and possibly having conversations with your partner to reduce the pressure you feel. Emotional disconnection is another critical factor in Felipe's missing libido that we need to address. Felipe is so consumed by his mental chatter, by his worries and stresses and constant cognitive processing, that he's fundamentally disconnected from his emotional inner experience and from his body's signals. He's living entirely in his head, in his thoughts, in problem-solving mode, never dropping into his body, never feeling his emotions, never being present with what's actually happening right now in this moment. This disconnection from self naturally extends to disconnection from others, including his partner. When you're not present with yourself, you cannot be truly present with someone else. When you're not in touch with your own emotional experience, you cannot create emotional intimacy with another person. And emotional intimacy, feeling emotionally connected and safe with your partner, is a crucial component of sexual desire for most people. You might be physically next to your partner, but mentally and emotionally 1,000 miles away. And in that disconnected state, desire cannot arise. Sexual desire is not just a physical, biological urge. It's also profoundly influenced by emotional connection, feeling seen and understood, feeling safe to be vulnerable, feeling genuinely connected to your partner. When that connection is absent because you're perpetually in your head dealing with your mental noise, libido naturally diminishes. So what's the solution? How do we help Felipe and men like him, who are suffocating under mental overload, quiet the noise, calm the nervous system, reconnect with body and emotions, and allow desire to reemerge naturally? Let me give you a comprehensive practical action plan with specific strategies you can implement. Step 1 is nervous system regulation and learning to shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic dominance. This is fundamental and must be practiced daily, not just when you want to have sex, but as a regular practice that gradually retrains your nervous system to spend more time in the rest and relax state. Specific practices include breath work, particularly slow deep breathing, which directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Try box breathing, where you breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, repeat. Or try extended exhale breathing, where your exhale is longer than your inhale, perhaps breathing in for 4 counts and out for 6 or 8 counts. Practice this for 5 to 10 minutes daily, and also use it in moments of stress or before bed or before intimate moments with your partner. Meditation and mindfulness practice trains your mind to be present rather than constantly future-tripping into worries and what-ifs. Even just 10 to 15 minutes daily of sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, and gently redirecting your attention, when your mind wanders, can significantly reduce baseline anxiety and improve your ability to be present. Progressive muscle relaxation, where you systematically tense and then release different muscle groups, helps release chronic tension and shift into parasympathetic mode. Yoga or gentle movement practices that emphasize breath and body awareness serve a similar function. Time in nature, particularly if you can combine it with walking, has documented effects on reducing stress hormones and promoting parasympathetic activation. The key is consistency. These practices work through cumulative effect over time, not through single sessions. So commit to daily practice even when it feels like nothing is happening. Step 2 is radical reduction of stimulation and input to allow your dopamine system and your mind to recover. Felipe needs to implement what might be called a dopamine detox or attention recovery protocol. This means significantly reducing or temporarily eliminating non-essential sources of stimulation. Turn off all non-essential notifications on your phone. You do not need to be alerted every time someone likes your social media post or sends an email. Drastically reduce social media use, ideally eliminating it entirely for a period of weeks to allow your mind to recalibrate. Reduce news consumption. You do not need to constantly monitor every development in politics, economics, and world events. Once daily or even less frequently is sufficient. Create technology-free times and spaces, particularly in the evening before bed and first thing in the morning. Your mind needs time without the constant input of screens and information. Reduce multitasking and try to focus on one thing at a time, rather than constantly switching between tasks and mental contexts. The goal is to dramatically reduce the total amount of stimulation and cognitive load you're subjecting yourself to, giving your nervous system and dopamine system space to recover and recalibrate. Step 3 is cognitive and mental decluttering to reduce the background noise in your mind. Felipe's mind is cluttered with unprocessed worries, unresolved decisions, unfinished mental loops that keep spinning uselessly. Several practices can help. Do a daily or weekly brain dump where you write out everything that's on your mind, all the worries, tasks, thoughts, concerns, just getting them out of your head and onto paper. This externalization often reveals that many worries are not as overwhelming as they felt when they were just swirling internally. Implement a getting things done style system for managing tasks and commitments so your mind doesn't have to constantly hold and review everything you need to remember. Make decisions about things you've been avoiding deciding about, even if the decision is to explicitly defer the decision until a specific later time, because unmade decisions consume mental energy. Practice thought stopping or cognitive diffusion techniques when you notice repetitive, unhelpful thought patterns. You don't have to believe or engage with every thought your mind generates. You can notice a thought and let it pass without attaching to it. Step 4 is addressing specific sources of anxiety through problem solving or acceptance. Felipe is anxious about finances, about work, about performance, about failure. Some of these anxieties can be reduced through practical problem solving. If you're anxious about finances, sit down and actually look at your budget. Make a plan. Take concrete actions, even if small ones. Often, the anxiety is worse than the actual situation when you finally confront it directly. For anxieties that cannot be resolved through action because they're about uncertain futures or things outside your control, practice acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean you like the situation or stop caring. It means you stop fighting against the reality of uncertainty and unknowing. Therapy, particularly cognitive behavioral therapy or acceptance and commitment therapy, can be very helpful for learning to manage anxiety more effectively. Step 5 is somatic practices and reconnection with your body. Felipe has been living entirely in his head, disconnected from physical sensation and body awareness. He needs to deliberately cultivate body connection. This might include body scan meditations, where you systematically bring awareness to different parts of your body, noticing sensation without judgment. It might include practices like massage, foam rolling, or other forms of touch that bring attention to physical sensation. Physical exercise, particularly when done mindfully with attention to how your body feels rather than just pushing through, reconnects you with your body. Dance or other expressive movement can serve a similar function. The goal is to shift some of your awareness out of your thinking mind and into your sensing body, which is where sexual desire lives. You cannot desire from your head. You can only desire from your body. Step 6 is rebuilding emotional and intimate connection with your partner. Schedule dedicated time together without distractions, phones put away, television off, just being together and talking or doing activities you both enjoy. Practice vulnerable communication where you share your internal experience, your fears, your feelings, not just facts and logistics. Ask your partner open-ended questions about their inner world and really listen to understand, not just to respond. Engage in non-sexual physical affection like cuddling, holding hands, massage, which maintains physical connection and intimacy without the pressure of sexual performance. Consider couples, counseling, or relationship coaching if you need help improving communication and connection. As emotional intimacy improves, sexual desire often follows naturally. Step 7 is reframing sexuality and removing performance pressure. Felipe needs to stop viewing sex as a performance that he might fail at and start viewing it as a collaborative, exploratory, pleasurable experience to share with his partner. This might mean having explicit conversations with his partner about the pressure he's feeling and agreeing to engage in physical intimacy without the expectation that it has to lead to intercourse. It might mean agreeing to a period of sense-it focus exercises where you explore touch and pleasure without any agenda or goal beyond enjoying sensation and connection. It means shifting the goal of sexual activity from achieving erection and orgasm to simply experiencing pleasure, intimacy, and connection, whatever form that takes. When you remove the pressure to perform, anxiety decreases, which allows parasympathetic activation, which allows arousal to occur naturally. Step 8 is creating space and capacity in your life through saying no and setting boundaries. Much of Felipe's overwhelm comes from taking on more than any human can reasonably handle. He needs to get ruthlessly honest about his limits and start setting boundaries and saying no to additional commitments, demands, and obligations. This is hard because it feels like letting people down or being selfish, but it's absolutely necessary for reclaiming his mental health and vitality. You cannot do everything, and pretending you can just leads to doing nothing well and destroying yourself in the process. When men implement these strategies consistently over a period of weeks to months, the transformation is often remarkable. Let me describe what Felipe's recovery might look like. Felipe commits to the practices we've discussed. He starts meditating for 15 minutes every morning and practicing breath work before bed. He turns off all non-essential notifications and deletes social media apps from his phone. He implements a weekly brain dump and task management system to externalize all the mental clutter. He starts therapy to work on his anxiety and catastrophic thinking patterns. He begins a daily body scan practice to reconnect with physical sensation. He schedules a weekly date night with his partner, where they focus entirely on connection without any agenda. In the first few weeks, Felipe doesn't notice dramatic changes, but he does notice that he's slightly less reactive to stressors, slightly more able to be present for moments at a time before his mind wanders back to worries. After about a month, he realizes he's been sleeping better, his baseline anxiety has decreased noticeably, and he occasionally has moments of genuine relaxation which used to be completely absent. After 2 months, something shifts. One evening, while just talking with his partner during their date night, he becomes aware of feeling something he hasn't felt in a long time, a stirring of desire, an awareness of attraction, an actual interest in physical intimacy. It's subtle, but it's definitely there. And importantly, because he's learned not to pressure himself, he doesn't freak out about whether he can perform. He just notices the feeling and allows it to be present. Over the following months, these moments become more frequent. His mind is still sometimes busy and worried, but it's not constantly at maximum overwhelm. He has access to states of relaxation and presence that create space for desire to emerge. His emotional connection with his partner has deepened through their consistent quality time and vulnerable communication. His body feels more alive and aware, and his libido gradually returns, not to teenage levels perhaps, but to a healthy functional level where he experiences genuine desire, initiates intimacy, and feels present and engaged during sex, rather than just going through the motions or avoiding it entirely. The desire wasn't broken, it was just suffocated, and by removing the suffocation, it was able to breathe again. This is the critical realization. For many men with low libido, the problem is not fundamentally biological. It's psychological and nervous system based. The equipment works, the hormones are adequate, but the conditions don't support desire. Change the conditions, regulate the nervous system, quiet the mind, reconnect with body and emotions, and desire returns naturally. You don't have to force it or manufacture it or take drugs to create it. You just have to remove the obstacles that are blocking it. Before we close, I want to address a common concern. Some men hear this information and think it means their problem isn't real, or it's just in their head, or they should be able to just decide to feel desire. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. The nervous system and psychological factors we've discussed are just as real and just as physiological as hormones. Being stuck in chronic sympathetic activation is a real physical state of your nervous system. Dopamine dysregulation is a real neurochemical condition. These are not imaginary or voluntary. You cannot just willpower your way out of them any more than you can willpower your way out of diabetes. They require specific interventions and practices to address. But the good news is those interventions don't require medication or medical procedures. In most cases, they require changing how you live, how you think, and how you regulate your nervous system, which are all within your control to change. Now, I have a question for you, and I really want you to engage with this in the comments because it helps me understand what you're experiencing and helps other men realize they're not alone. Where do you think your biggest pain is today? More in your mind or more in your body? Is your low libido primarily coming from mental overwhelm, anxiety, stress, and psychological factors like Felipe? Or do you think it's more about physical factors like hormones, energy, sleep, or health conditions? Or is it both and they're interacting with each other? Please share honestly in the comments because this kind of reflection helps you understand your own situation better and helps create community around these issues. If this video helped you understand how your mental state is affecting your libido, if it gave you practical strategies to quiet your mind and create space for desire to return, please hit that like button to help other men who are suffering from overwhelm and lost desire find this information. Share this video with someone who needs it. Subscribe and turn on notifications because I'll continue creating evidence-based content about men's health, mental health, sexual function, and optimal living. Thank you for watching until the end and for being willing to look honestly at how your mind and nervous system are affecting your sexuality. Your willingness to do this internal work is the path to reclaiming your desire and vitality. Now go practice those breathwork techniques. Start that meditation practice. Reduce that stimulation. Reconnect with your body. Rebuild that emotional intimacy. Your libido is not broken. It's just suffocated. And you have the power to give it room to breathe again. I believe in you. See you in the next video.